In Mark IV model form, the Toyota Yaris has been further Europeanised, with sharper styling, a better quality interior and improved media connectivity. Most important though are the significant changes made to its segment-leading hybrid engine, giving the car better fuel economy, lower emissions and a greatly enhanced capability to operate on electric power alone at higher speeds and over longer distances. What was already a class act has just become genuinely hard to overlook.
What the original versions of this Yaris Hybrid were designed to do, they did brilliantly, just not in a very engaging way. This Mark IV version though is rather different, as you'll feel instantly from the way it zips more energetically away from rest. That has a lot to do with the denser cells used in the new 0.76 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery, which powers two electric motor generators integral to the completely redesigned fourth generation self-charging full hybrid drivetrain. This still works with a 1.5 litre petrol engine, but that combustion unit now has 3 rather than 4 cylinders, and it's mated to a completely reworked eCVT auto gearbox, which now responds far more quickly to throttle inputs rather than in its own sweet time as before. Combined power output is 114 brake horsepower, but you'll only really feel that if you switch out of this car's usual eco drive mode and into the alternative power setting. There is a further EV mode in which the car can run on battery power only for up to 4 miles, or in theory at up to 80 miles an hour in totally electrified form. Now, we mentioned the extra level of engagement this time around. Beyond the city limits, you'll discover a completely different level of driver involvement compared to that previous model, and that's thanks to sharper steering, a lower centre of gravity, and a brand new, much stiffer GAB version of the company's modern era TNGA platform. Reworked torsion beam rear suspension also helps here, though we think that on plusher variants fitted with larger 17-inch wheels, like the one we're trying here, Toyota has set it up a touch too firmly. That affects ride quality over poorer surfaces. Try the smaller 16-inch rims before you decide on trim then. Buyers of the top GR Yaris hot hatch model will of course want a firmer ride. Now, that variant has its own 257 brake horsepower, 1.6 litre 3-cylinder turbo engine and 6-speed manual gearbox, mated to the compact all-wheel drive i 4x4 system, which also features as an option on the SUV version of this Toyota Super Mini, the Yaris Cross. Otherwise, all Yaris models are now full hybrid powered with auto transmission and front-wheel drive, in which form they're class-leadingly clean and frugal, according to the WLTP figures. A base spec variant can manage up to 68.9 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 92 grams per kilometre of CO2. With this fourth generation XP210 series Yaris, Toyota has returned to the so-called big-small concept which inspired the original Mark I model. You get that from a glance at this car and at its spec sheet. The wheelbase is longer, but overall length, unusually for a new Super Mini, is actually shorter, 5 mils less than the last Mark III version. Visually, the emphasis has been on delivering this with a fresh sense of energy and dynamism. Chief engineer Yasunori Suzawa wanted the styling to capture the stance of an athlete on the starting blocks. You can see this in the aggressively shaped rear wings, which arch up into the C-pillars, and in the car's more purposeful, wider, lower and more compact proportions, which aim to deliver the impression of condensed power. The front end continues with that more energetic theme, the larger grille topped by this prominent central emblem and flanked by headlights that extend back towards the front wheels. At the rear, you might better appreciate this Mark IV model's 40mm reduction in height and this black mid-level trim panel and a prominent diffuser-style section in the sculpted bumper together accentuate the 50mm increase in overall width, which along with the 57mm extension of the track width adds to the lower, wider and more purposeful stance. Well, a big step forward certainly been taken. The fascia style is more modern. The trim materials are of higher quality. This 8-inch central infotainment screen now no longer has a turn-of-the-century look, and providing you avoid base trim, there's even a set of circular digital dials in the instrument cluster. Function as well as form has been prioritised here too, hence the way that to improve visibility, the instrument panel has been set lower and the A-pillars here have been pulled further back. Plus, Toyota has tried to create more of a spacious feeling environment by moving these front seats slightly outwards and 60mm rearwards. You sit lower too, which delivers a sportier stance in front of this smaller 3-spoke wheel. There's a bit more tech too, standard Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring. There's an included rear view camera and the option of a colour head-up display. Plus, side and rearward vision is generally unimpeded, and good pedal alignment, along with lots of seat and wheel adjustability, means it's easy to find an ideal driving position too. Time to take a seat in the back. Now, with 50mm of extra wheelbase length this time around, you'd hope for a few improvements here. But despite the provision of 20mm more legroom from this Mark IV design, cabin space still feels merely average by class standards, possibly because the hybrid system battery is now under this bench rather than, as before, beneath the boot floor. We'll finish with a look at boot space. Bearing in mind the battery relocation we just mentioned, we were expecting a small improvement in size here, so it's a fraction disappointing to find the same 286 litre capacity as before. At a time of radical change in the motor industry, this 4th generation Yaris had to deliver, and by and large it has. As before, most will still choose this hybrid Super Mini for its superb refinement, its regularly achievable 50 to 60 miles per gallon economy, and its tax-friendly sub 100 grams per kilometre CO2 readings. The difference now, though, is that those aren't the only reasons why you might want one. As an alternative to a baby battery-powered full electric small hatch, it may not be quite as good for the planet, but for most people, most of the time, it's by far the better all-round choice. And the bottom line, well, ask yourself what you really need a Super Mini for, and then see if this Yaris doesn't tick every single box. Toyota, it seems, knows how to write a bestseller.